All right, let's see what the chat's saying about all this, and I'm going to try to get caught up. I know we had a super chat here for Pack Attack. Greatly appreciate you, buddy. Says, where would you say our Super Bowl window currently stands at? My opinion has not changed, Pack Attack. I said this last year. I felt like we had a 3-year Super Bowl window. In 3 years, our cap really blimps, and we got to make a decision on Jordan Love. We got to make a decision on Micah Parsons. It felt like we've got 2 more years left in that window. The first year got decimated by injuries, okay? And this is why I was very vocal when we were talking about all this. When the injuries happened and everybody was saying, fire Matt LaFleur, fire the whole staff, I'm like, God, we didn't even make it through year 1 of a 3-year window. Like, we just now went all in. And yeah, you got bit by the injury bug, and it sucks. But when that happens, right, it's like now all of a sudden we're ready to scrap it and just start over. So I feel like we're in year 2 of the 3-year window, Pack Attack. That makes sense. Now, that can change, obviously. That's very, very fluid situation. It's not like, okay, if we don't do it in 3 years, well, we got to definitely scrap it down. It's going to come down to how other players perform. Do we hit on a late round gem that propels us? Man, this guy's going to anchor our defense, or this guy's going to be an absolute stud in our offense. Let's say Savion Williams turns into the next Larry Fitzgerald. I'm not saying he will, just for, conversation piece. If he emerges and he just bypasses everybody, Christian Watson too, he just soars past Christian Watson. He's the number 1 receiver, and we got him in a 3rd-round pick on a cheap deal. And all of a sudden we feel like we don't have to pay a Christian Watson, or we don't have to pay, a Jaden Reed or somebody like that. And now all of a sudden you've got one of the top 5 or top 10 wide receivers in the league. That changes the dynamic. Maybe that window gets extended out a little bit, because now you don't have to pay 20, 25 million for a receiver to lock down your number 1. Now, I want to make sure people don't misunderstand me here. I'm not saying that we shouldn't re-sign Christian Watson. I would write him a check today. He showed me everything as a leader, as a player. He's physically stronger and faster than he was before. His hands have gotten better. His route running's gotten better. He's a leader in the locker room. I love Christian Watson, so I'd be all about it. I really, really would. So, with all that being said, there's just things that may change that window a little bit, may extend that window. You know what else could happen? I don't even want to say it, because I don't want to come across as being negative. This is clearly a hypothetical, right? It's just, what if Jordan Love all of a sudden just regresses like crazy, right? If we come out this year and he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, I do not think that'll happen. He's going in the opposite direction. This dude is soaring. His stock is through the roof. But if he struggled this year and he went back to say he wasn't even a starting caliber quarterback, and Malik Willis leaves in free agency, and now we're down to, well, we got to find our franchise quarterback. Obviously, that's the end of the 3-year window, right? But the way things are projecting, Pack Attack, I would say we're in year 2 of 3 is what I would say. So let's see what else is going on in the chat. Cheddarhead said Raiders going to pay Quay $20 million. I wouldn't doubt it. There's teams that I think teams will, they're going to immediately, these free agents guys, the way this works with GMs is they've got NFL scouts and they've got college football scouts. And obviously the college football scouts put an entire profile together for their draft board. Everybody is going to look at all these free agents, Goody included, and say, what kind of draft grade did we have on these players? Okay. So there are going to be teams across the league. Remember when he was skyrocketing up boards, that probably could change him. So they'll probably approach it that way and overpay for Quay. That's why I don't see him coming back to Green Bay. That's the one I kind of disagree with there, with what Fox Sports predicted, because I feel like you could probably get Calais Campbell for less than $10 million, but Quay, I think there's going to be a team that'll pay him $10 to $15 million and probably outbid us in terms of the guaranteed money, if that makes sense. It's a very interesting question, though, for sure. Let's see what else we got in here. Yeah, Mike Z says the Chanel comparison is insane. You know, that's why I love doing these shows, Mike, and I love doing them live with you guys, because we could kind of talk about it and have a conversation. That's how I felt, was just like the fact that these other players are getting paid far less and they were later draft picks and they're outperforming our first-round picks. I was going to do a segment, on Goody and his draft, where he's kind of swung and missed in the draft here lately, not to harp on it, but just to kind of prove like, hey, here's where we need to get better, right? And we got to stop pretending like, well, no, I got it right. They need to play better. That's what bothered me about Goody's press conference here recently, was the vibe I got was, no, I think we got everything we need to win a championship right now. And these guys just need to play better is kind of the vibe I got. And I'm going, so what I just heard you say is we don't need to improve the roster at all. Now, again, he's always said one thing. I mean, Goody has blatantly lied to the media I'm not saying that's right or wrong. You guys be the judge of that. But man, oh man, has he been? I mean, with Aaron Jones, he said he's the heart and soul of this team. Absolutely, he's going to be back. And what was it? It felt like one day later, his ass was gone. They shipped him out, right? They cut him loose. So, take that with a grain of salt on how they attack these moves and what they actually say in the media. But I'm from the Brian Billick, and he learned this from Bill Walsh. The great Bill Walsh said, anytime you're speaking to the media, you're speaking to your team. Well, I didn't like that message. I didn't like the message the GM said, which basically, we got everything we need here. We just got to play better. If I'm a player, I'm going, okay, so he doesn't think we need to improve the roster at all. Now, on one hand, some people would say, I bet your players love to hear that. I bet they love to hear it. Hell, I bet they did. Oh, my job ain't in jeopardy. We're good to go. I don't want my players thinking like that. I want my players to be held accountable. Just like I want my GM to be held accountable, just like I want my head coach to be held accountable. Lord knows Matt LaFleur was held accountable this year from the fan base. I mean, it got loud. Granted, it was 20-25% of the fan base, but still it was like, boy, well, I'm watching him scheme guys open and guys not executing. Much of Matthew Golden run the wrong routes at times, and that's going to happen with a young receiver, which is why you can't bank on a rookie player even in the first round. I mean, when was the last time a first-round pick for the Packers had an immediate impact? And I'm asking a serious question. These are the things that have become revelations to me this year that I'm like, man, I think I have been giving Goody too much grace and too much, too much credit. I mean, think about it. I think of the recent first-round picks, and you go back to, Jair was one that popped early, graded in the 60s, and then obviously became, I think some would consider an elite corner in his prime, right? So there's one. Got to give him credit for that, right? I'm trying to think. Darnell Savage, that was a first-round pick. That was a swing and a miss, right? Quay Walker, first-round pick. It feels like that was a swing and a miss, at least right now, in my opinion, for a first. And here's the other thing. Draft position matters. Like, if Quay had been drafted in the third round, I'd love him as a player. We'd be talking about re-signing him at $3 to $5 million per. But the fact that his athleticism skyrocketed him in the first round talent, that's why his market's going to be overinflated, in my opinion. So if he'd been a third round pick, I'd go, that was a great pick. That's like AJ Hawk. AJ Hawk was a far more productive, far better linebacker than Quay Walker. Okay. However, AJ Hawk was a top 5 pick, so people consider him a bust. Some Packer fans do. I think he was a very underappreciated player, to be honest with you. So that's a perfect comparison of the two. Like, you know what I'm saying? That if you were to say who's the better linebacker, AJ Hawk or was it Quay Walker, I think there's a portion of the fan base I would disagree with. I think there's a portion of the fan base say Quay Walker was better because he's taller, right? He's leaner. He looks more physically opposing. Well, his RAS was through the roof. Well, I mean, AJ Hawks was too in terms of, I think he ran a 4.4 40, right? He was kind of an athletic freak, just a smaller stature, kind of your traditional early 2000s stack backer, right? So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but yeah, I'm with you though, Mike. The Chanel comparison is it's pretty wild, man, for sure. Let's see what Wolfman Madden says. Quay needs to go. Money doesn't match his grades at all. And again, Wolfman, I agree, but it's not just about the grades, right? I think we would all acknowledge that. You look at the stats, you look at the tape, everything. It just, when you watch him on tape, you don't go, oh yeah, I'm giving that dude $15 million per. Just can't do it, right? So I agree with you there for sure. Let's see what else happens in the chat here. Just want to get you guys involved. J. Cole getting straight to the point. J. Love for MVP. Hey, made me a believer this year, man. His accuracy got so much better this year, Jay. Wow. I mean, wow. Chase Green in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. He says, Clayton, I would spend money and picks on D tackle. That room needs improvement. Completely agree, man. And we got a cheat sheet here for defensive tackles. We kind of laid it out for you guys. The top defensive tackles according to PFF's rankings, and again, take them with a grain of salt. Most of the time, their rankings don't match up with their grades, so it's kind of weird, I don't know what you'd call it, their dynamic they have over there at PFF. But here's the names on the cheat sheet, or just on the sheet in general, and I'll tell you my 4 favorite once again. DJ Reader, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Daquan Jones, John Franklin Myers, Stephen Joseph Days, Sheldon Ranks. You've got Deshaun Han, I think is his name, Christian Wilkins. People are still in love with Christian Wilkins. Was I don't want to dog anybody, but all I've got to say is do a little research as to why he got cut from the last team. and where he's kind of been, that's been his MO the entire time. It's a different cat. I would not want to bring that in the locker room personally. Great football player when he was on the field, but just a really weird dynamic there. I'll leave it at that. Levi Ozaruke, if I'm saying it right, he's on the list. Shelby Harris and Logan Hall. Now, I've marked my favorites. So here's my cheat sheet of defensive tackles, okay? And we've got a free agency position of need cheat sheet that I've shared in our Patreon group. You guys can go check that out. Actually, let me throw it up here for you guys so make it a little bit easier. If you want to support us and join our community, just go to patreon.com/Packer fan total access, and you'll have access to all this stuff that we post in there. You can download these images and keep them for yourself as well. Also want to give a shout out to Stick to the Model, a website we've been using. They reached out and asked us to be a partner with them because I was just like, man, I sent them a message going, dude, this is an unbelievable tool y'all created. So they may potentially partner up. And I just want you guys to continue to support them. It might be something where you'd have to type in a code and I would get credit for sending you over there. I told them, don't even worry about that. I don't need that money. It ain't a big deal. But I would like to continue to promote it for you guys and show it on the show and just drive traffic. So I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah. So anyway, defensive tackle, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Levi Ozarike, and then Logan Hall. Those are the four I would like to potentially sign, to go back to Chase Green's comment there. So me personally, that's the approach I would like to see them take. Give me one of those four. Hell, give me two of them. I'll be okay with that. You know, and if you got to put Stackhouse on the practice squad and activate them when you need him or what have you, like I would be okay with Calais Campbell and David Onyemata. I would be okay with Calais Campbell and Ozarike. What I'd love to see happen is get Calais Campbell in there for that veteran presence and still solid play, and then get Logan Hall if you can get him at a deal. That way you got a young ascending defensive tackle, and now you don't feel obligated to re-sign Devontae Wyatt to a overpriced extension, and he's 28 years old, right? Logan Hall's going to be 26. So to me, that makes more sense than Devontae Wyatt. And when you look at the PFF grades, I think you'd be shocked. I think you'd be surprised at just how bad Devontae Wyatt's graded out as well. Now, again, take that with a grain of salt. Maybe you think he's a better player. I think he's a good pass rusher and a below average run defender. That's just me. And I can't justify overpaying for someone with that kind of profile. Jason Y with the super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you. This is why I think Aaron Banks will be back. I think I know what you're referring to, Jason. When Goody won't admit, hey, I made a mistake there. Unfortunately, I think you're probably right. I would rather go post June 1, cut your losses. Again, the only thing worse than making a bad signing or a bad draft pick is refusing to admit that you made a mistake. And I think the great general managers were quick to admit they made mistakes and just move on, you know? So I think you're probably right, man. I think you're probably right. I think he'll probably be back. Now, let's try to find the positive there. Let's don't get all depressed, right? The positive is he is a veteran, so the roster's not going to get younger if they cut him loose or if they keep him, right? So that's a positive. Who knows? Maybe he takes a year or two step. He did battle some injuries. You see, I'm really trying to sell myself on this, right? It's tough. It's a tough sell for sure. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you, buddy. H.E. Soder with the super. Appreciate you, Soder. The issue has been very few drafted players have made a second year at jump. No idea if that is evaluation, coaching, or where they play him. It's a good question. Me personally, I don't like the fact that two of those options are geared around blaming someone else other than the evaluation. At some point, I think that I'm not asking you to do this, Soder, but this is where I'm at. I guess the best way to say this, Soder, your super chat here is where I was 2 years ago. I was kind of like, well, we don't really know. Now I'm to the point where I'm just like, man, he's hit on good draft picks. Don't get me wrong. It's not like Goody has been the worst GM. I'm just looking across the rest of the league and going, damn, boy, Elliott Wolf turned that around real quick. Seattle, John Schneider. I mean, now you're talking about his second Super Bowl ring. All right, let's go ahead and flip this roster right on around. Bang, here we go. There's your ring, boys. You know, like at some point, I just remember, and maybe this is a fault of mine, I remember everybody wanting to run Mike McCarthy out of town. Okay. Now, Goody technically took over in 2019 or 2018, which was Mike McCarthy's last year, right? But it's pretty much common knowledge he was running things on the scouting side behind the scenes, really everything behind the scenes, it sounded like. He was one of like the top three that was really in charge of handling stuff while Ted Thompson's obviously his health declined, right? So I kind of look at Goody's been here longer than 2018, but if you just want to say no, we got to count 2018. In 2018, it was Mike McCarthy's fault, right? So we fire Mike McCarthy, we move on. 2019, you bring in Matt LaFleur, and they go to that's the back-to-back 13-win seasons, right? And they go to the NFC championships and all that. Well, what happened in those games? Why did they fall short? Special teams, right? Now, there's been a big conversation on that. It sounds like we potentially lowballed, Darren Rizzi, and that's why he didn't come here. I know Rob Domofsky said Darren Rizzi wasn't ever coming here. He didn't want to shovel snow. Well, he just ended up in Denver, so I don't know how that. I think it snows in Denver. Could be wrong. Anyway, so I think we'd all agree special teams, the punt blocked and returned for a touchdown was the reason we lost against the 49ers in that game in the snow at Lambeau. I know many people try to, well, it's because the offense was so bad, and it was Aaron Rodgers trying to lock onto Devontae Adams. So that's when the whole it's Aaron Rodgers' fault started up, even though they couldn't take it too far because he was the reigning MVP, right? Or he won MVP, what is it, back-to-back years, I think 19 and 20, if I remember correctly, or was it 2021? Might have been 2021. Regardless. So you can see the blame went from it was McCarthy's fault to it's the special teams' fault, right? And then it goes from it's the special teams' fault to it's Aaron Rodgers' fault, right? Aaron Rodgers started catching some heat. He won't throw over the middle, and he won't run the plays that Matt LaFleur, blah, 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 right? So he started getting some of the blame. And then God knows Joe Barry took a brunt. Joe Barry took it on the chin, right? So it was Joe Barry's fault. So you move on from Joe Barry, right? And then you bring in the next DC, right? And now all of a sudden it's back to special teams, and now it's Matt LaFleur's fault, right? It's a combination of Rich Bisaccia and Matt LaFleur were the issues. And the problem I have with that is there's been one constant through the McCarthy was the fault, through the special teams was the fault, through the Aaron Rodgers was at fault, Joe Barry was at fault, Rich Bisaccia's at fault, Matt LaFleur's at fault. There's been one thing here this entire time, and it's Brian Gutekunst. And that's why I'm mind boggled. I'm like, does he got pictures of somebody on his phone? How does everybody else skate by, but he doesn't, And again, I don't want Brian Gutekunst fired. Please hear me. I think he's a very good general manager. And you're probably going, well, why wouldn't you consider him great, Clayton? Because they haven't gotten over the hump. Well, that's not his fault. How can you say that? How can we say it's not the general manager's fault when we've marched out the youngest roster in the league 3 years in a row? And then he sits at the presser, and you got people literally beat reporters getting angry because he's going, no, I don't. I think you got to get your young players on the field. Okay, you get your young players on the field, and you feel like it don't pan out, and then you move on to other young players again and again and again and again and again. I know he's not. It's not that Goody hasn't signed free agents. We've seen he signed free agents, right? He did it last year, but that was always the thing to fall back on too. Boy, he's really good in free agency. He went and got Xavier McKinney, and he got Josh Jacobs. Nailed those. We were praising him. Man, Goody crushed that free agency. Last year, Nate Hobbs, Aaron Banks. Again, man, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to sit here. Not that you are, Soder. I'm not saying it at all, man. I'm just telling you my standpoint, guys. Like, I'm not going to sit here and just go, la, 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 Goody's perfect, Goody's perfect. I'm not going to do it. Just like I called out when Aaron Rodgers was wrong. I also called out when I felt like, man, they're putting blame on him. I remember saying this. They're saying that he will not run Matt LaFleur's play calls, that he's just running whatever he wants because they're seeing him go can. I said, keep that same energy when Jordan Love takes over, because I promise you, I will bet the farm that that's not going to change. And lo and behold, Jordan Love comes out and he's changing the plays at the line of scrimmage. He's canning to a second and third play, right? He's giving the little hand signals and getting Christian Watson on the same wavelength, right? The same stuff that Aaron did. So again, it was just easy to kind of make Aaron the boogeyman, because I know he was somewhat divisive in his stances with the whole, COVID and all that, right? That's why, just like with the halftime show, I removed that, guys. I'm like, y'all tune in to hear me talk about ball. Y'all don't want to hear my personal opinions on that crap. What makes my political personal opinions or my whatever, is in the news right now, personal opinions, more important than anyone else's. Yeah. If I have politics in the title, I feel like y'all were in here, then we might be doing the right thing. Right. But this is a football podcast. Why would I ever bring that in? That's why I couldn't understand why people, a portion of the fan base, just descended upon Aaron like, okay, now he's the most horrible person in the world. Get him out of here. Now, hindsight being 2020, obviously. And I will say this, you've got to tip your cap to Goody for that Jordan Love pick. Goody knows how to identify quarterbacks because Jordan Love is, and that's the most important piece. So you talk about priorities. That's why some people would say, how can you say he's good, Clayton? Or no, very good. How can you say he's a very good GM, Clayton? That's one of the main reasons right there is, boy, oh boy, he handpicked Jordan Love, and Jordan Love turned into a very fine football player, right? So, again, it would take him winning a Super Bowl to get in that great column for me. And if he went all in, and let's say he goes out and he gets 3 or 4 veteran players, and you could really tell, boy, they pushed it all in the middle right here, especially with the Micah Parsons trade. Great trade. Completely agree with the Micah Parsons trade. Completely agree with it. If he could get a Super Bowl ring, now he's in the great category for me. If he wins 2, I mean, that's the thing about John Schneider. And thank you for the super chat, Soda. Appreciate you, buddy. Joe Trev says it here. John Schneider has the golden eye. And listen, I remember listening to podcasts and hearing Packer fans, John Schneider's overrated. John Schneider's overrated. Let me tell you what John Schneider is right now. In my opinion, he is in the talk for Hall of Fame caliber general manager. People are going to go, what are you talking about, Clayton? Name the amount of GMs that won 2 Super Bowls. I'll wait. Because it's a short list. It's a very, very short list. What's the ultimate goal? To be the youngest roster in the league every year? To say we're $30 million under the cap? Boy, we know how to balance the books. Or is it to win the damn ring? Right? And sooner or later, you got to acknowledge you ain't been able to win the ring. You can say the same thing with Matt LaFleur, but you've also got to run it through the filter of why did they not win the ring? And if that why means, well, your special teams was absolute trash. Wasn't Rich Bisaccia here when that happened? It was somebody else, right? If the special teams is trash, who's in charge of building the bottom third of the roster to help bolster special teams? Because we know Bill Belichick put emphasis on it. We know these other teams are putting emphasis on it. You can see it. You can tell, Mike Vrabel doing the same thing. He's building it from the same. He is basically Bill Belichick 2.0, if you haven't noticed. He is. Now, he's a lot better with the players than Bill was, right? Bill was very just standoffish, cold. That players behind the scenes say he wasn't like that, but at least to that extent. But how we look at this, but I just want everybody to be held accountable equally. Like, okay, it's like Jordan Love. If he comes out this year and he tanks, hey, we got to call it. I'm going to call it. Like we say, if you see it, you got to say it. I'm always going to operate that way on this show. If I see something, I'm going to say it. Rashawn Gary, the last 3 years, people have been saying he's washed, get him out of here, he sucks. And I'm going, no, he don't. No, he don't. No, he don't. He's worth the money. $11 million against the cap. What, $12 million against the cap? What are you talking about? He's leading our team in sacks and quarterback pressure percentage. Why would this year the cap number blimps to, what's the note out here? 28 million? Yeah. Now is the time for me to have that conversation. I'm not telling anybody else how to fan, but now's the time that I go, okay, now a decision's got to be made. Gary, if you want to take a pay cut, we'd love to have you back. I think you're still a good player, a very good player, in my opinion. Got to have you back at the right price. If you're not willing to take a pay cut, completely understand. We're going to cut you loose. We're going to free up $11 million and we're going to move on. It's that simple, right? Now is the time. Again, if you see it, you got to say it. Last year, the second half of the season, he really tapered off, and there's no way he's going to be worth that $28 million. If he was on the books for 10, 11, 12 million, yes, it's worth it. He led our defensive linemen in run stops outside of Kobe Wooden, who played the one touch spot. So all that being taken into consideration, just saying you got to acknowledge when it's time to move on, right? So I don't want it to come across like there's never that point for me for anybody in particular. Thomas Ott with the super chat. Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate you, buddy. He says, I definitely put some blame on Rodgers, but it's looking more like maybe Rodgers carried the team more than we thought. I support Goot, but it also stunk letting Elliott Wolf walk. people try to compare, Thomas, they try to compare like, should we have kept John Schneider instead of Goody? John Schneider got hired in 2010, right? That was years ago, right? He used to babysit Elliott Wolf. That's how long ago it was. So that's not a good. Elliott Wolf's the good comparison, right? He's the good comparison. Looking back, hindsight being 2020, which would you guys rather have? Do you think we should have hired Elliott Wolf? Because it pissed Ron Wolf off. If you guys don't know, do a little research there. He was really disappointed in the Packers that they chose Brian Gutekunst over Elliott Wolf. But again, what's it come down to? It's all about rings. Well, neither of them have rings yet, but Elliott Wolf in his second year as general manager just went to the freaking Super Bowl. That's something Goody has not done since 2018, right? Since becoming the GM in 2018. So you look at that, go, well, Goody found Jordan Love. He did, but Elliott Wolf found Drake May, right? I'm not saying that Drake May is better than Jordan Love. I think there's still time will tell if that holds true or not. But this year, there was a lot of analytics that suggested Drake May played significantly better than Jordan Love. Not significantly better, but better than Jordan Love. He's an MVP candidate, right? So, yeah, I'm with you on that, Thomas. I don't hate Goody either. I support him. That's the other thing. The portion of the fan base that ticks me off the most are the ones that they'll make an emotional tweet. They'll make an emotional comment on a podcast. And because they allowed their crybaby in them to get so tore up at that moment, they stick to that no matter what. And you can tell they're rooting for the team to do bad so they can go, see, I told you guys so, as opposed to, hell yeah, the Packers are Super Bowl champs. I do not understand that thought process. So again, I'm with you, Thomas. I hope we're looking up next year. We win a Lombardi and I have to go, boys, I was hard on Goody and he shut me up. Right. And again, all that I think is going to come into play right here this offseason with all these potential free agents. I mean, we got a ton of cornerback free agents, defensive tackle, stack backer. We talked about that today. He'll even tight end. There's 4 tight ends I would be okay with signing. We got Tucker Kraft. I know Tucker Kraft got hurt last year. And what do we have? Nothing. Right. So again, injuries are going to happen. And if we're going to continue to press into 12 personnel, which is the direction right now, that could change. But right now, that's the direction that the league's going in, is 12 and even 13 personnel. If that's the direction you're going in, I wouldn't hate going and getting a Charlie Kohler or a Dallas Goedert or, like Travis Kelce. He's probably going to retire. And if he does come back, I'm sure he'll come back and play for the Chiefs. He wouldn't go anywhere else. If you could tell me we could get Travis Kelce on a 1-year, $5 million deal, I think you'd be silly not to have a guy who's won that many rings come in and help your tight end room a little bit and play with Tucker Kraft. I think it's very, very unreasonable to say Travis Kelce could potentially sign with the Packers. That's not going to happen. So don't take that the wrong way. But I think you could improve the tight end room. We talk about center. Tyler Linderbaum's at the top of my list. You got Connor McGovern. Very interesting there as well. That might be a nice little stopgap at center. So you don't force yourself to have to draft a center like a Jake Slaughter or somebody like that that's highest on your board and reach a little bit to make sure you get a position of need. And then at guard, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 6 guards I would be okay with signing. Samalo is one. David Edwards is one. Elijah Vera Tucker is really interesting. Joel Bitonio, not my favorite, although I think that would help the offensive line. Kevin Zeitler, Ed Ingram, Tevin Jenkins is another one, former Chicago Bear. I can't remember who he played for last year, but he's kind of popped here recently. And you're going, Clayton, you would rather have those guys over Aaron Banks? Absolutely. Well, why wouldn't Goody go sign one of those guys for $6 million per as opposed to giving Aaron Banks that huge contract? I'll tell you why. Because he probably had him significantly higher on his draft board than others did. Okay. Definitely higher than the 49ers did because the 49ers weren't willing to pay him that contract, so I would rather, give me someone at $6 million per as opposed to, our boy Aaron Banks, $24.8 million against the cap this year. That'll, at a minimum, that'll have to be restructured. If we start the season and he's on the cap at $24.8 million, we march on 1265. I'm just joking. We don't march, but we're going to be very upset. I'll just leave it at that. So thank you for the super chat, Thomas. Appreciate you, buddy. Joe Trev with the super chat. I personally credit John Schneider partially for the 2010 Packers. That's the other thing, Joe Trev. And I understand there's a portion of the fan base that would probably say, well, no, you can't look at it like that. You can't look at it like that. I get it. I can understand that. I can respect that opinion. But also, John Schneider being here with the Packers championship team in 2010, how much was he doing behind the scenes? I mean, like I said, when he was here, he was babysitting Elliott Wolf for some of the time he was here. So obviously he was very, very involved that final year. He was probably the head scout, I would imagine. He was kind of running the scouting department for Ted, is what I would think it was. And Goody was obviously probably below him at the time. So the real decision to be made there would be, do we let Ted Thompson go and do we keep John Schneider, right? Well, no, you can't do that because Ted Thompson just won the Super Bowl. And Ted Thompson, the result of the roster that Ted Thompson built is why the Seattle Seahawks are coming calling for John Schneider, right? But I think you make a great point, Joe Trev. Maybe John Schneider was way more involved with that team. I know this. Since he left in 2010, right? Since John Schneider left, now you guys correct me if I'm wrong. John Schneider, he was on staff when they won the Super Bowl, right? And it was the next year because 2010 to 2011, like it was technically the calendar year 2011 when we won the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly. But it was the 2010 regular season. That gets a little tricky. But I will say this, Joe Trev, John Schneider won more Super Bowls than Ted Thompson. So I can't sit here and say Ted Thompson, even though Ted Thompson was John Schneider's mentor, I can't say Ted Thompson was a better GM than Schneider because he doesn't have those pelts on the wall, So that's a great point, though, Joe. Appreciate you. Jason Y with the super chat. I may be in the minority, but doubling down on one position in the draft seems a lack of conviction on your picks. I personally like doubling down, Jason Y, because you don't know when you're going to miss, But you make a great point. You make a really good point. Like, if you truly believe Luke Musgrave is better than Tucker Kraft, right? And that's what Goody was saying when he drafted Luke Musgrave in the second and Tucker Kraft in the third. You got it wrong. And listen, I like Luke Musgrave better than Tucker Kraft. I say I didn't watch him personally and go, yeah, I like him better. Maybe I would have liked Tucker Kraft more. I don't know. You guys know I don't do that. Our board suggested Luke Musgrave was slightly better than Tucker Kraft. Okay? So I'm not sitting here saying, well, Goody's an idiot. Now, I'm not saying that, but with what you're saying there, that's the first thing that popped up in my mind. When you talk about doubling down on one position, it screams a lack of conviction in your picks. Yeah, we really like Luke Musgrave, but we also like Tucker Kraft. I like doubling down because all GMs miss. There's no GMs in the league that are perfect on their draft picks. It's just not true, right? And I know you're not saying that, Jason, but when you take all that into perspective, it's like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. That is lack of conviction. Same thing with safety. They went Javon Bullard in the second, Evan Williams in the third. Is that how that went? I think that's how that went. Maybe Evan Williams was in the fourth. But we had Javon Bullard higher than Evan Williams. Lo and behold, Evan Williams ends up being the better safety, although Bull is playing in the slot. And we wasn't in the draft room. Maybe that was the plan all along was, hey, year two, we're going to put Bullard in the slot. Because he did play the slot his next to last year in college for Georgia, if I remember correctly. Then he moved to safety. So maybe I got that flip, but regardless, he had slot background. So maybe that was their plan all along. And this is just like when we break down the tape, we say, all right, I think this player ran the wrong route, or I think this player missed his assignment, but we're not in the meeting room. I'm always going to preface it or always going to plug it that way because we don't know. They may have told the safety, the box safety, because we're playing this team this week as opposed to a team that we approached it different 3 weeks ago. They may be saying, hey, look, I really want you to hold tight in the hook curl underneath if the tight end's the two on the right. Because our tape study, our film study suggests when they get the tight end and the two on the right, they're going to try to hit you with a curl route here. So I want you to clamp down on that. And then they run a seam route, and it looks like, oh, crap, the backer bit too hard, and he gets beat. Well, it's on tape. We're going to look up and go, man, you can't get beat over the top like that. Play that top down. Well, if they were in the meeting room that week and they said, hey, when Kelsey's in the two to the right, clamp on the curl, you clamp on the curl, he hits you with the double move and beats you, the coaches aren't going to go, what are you doing there? Coaches are going to go, hey, we, they set us up for that. They put on film that they like to hammer that curl. They hit you with a stop and go. And, that's not on you. That's on us. We're not in those meetings, right? So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's just, I always try to remove the emotions. And when we're watching the tape, when we're doing Chalk Talk, let's run it through that filter. Let's run it through the filter of, okay, we don't know exactly what the call was, but we got a pretty good idea. Now, there's sometimes it's blatantly obvious that, yeah, he just screwed the pooch there. Like you're not going to convince me that the coaches told Keyshawn Nixon if they run an out route bot on it, when everybody else, there's nobody else deep third on that side. You're basically saying, I'm going to take a 50-50 shot, and if I guess wrong, they get 6 points. There's no coach that's going to tell him bot on that with no help over the top. It's different with the stack backer, option, or what am I trying to say here? Scenario I just laid out for you. So appreciate you, Jason. Man, I can't believe we went an hour 8. I was going to go 30 minutes. Hey, the internet held up. That's positive, right? So we're good there. We're going to wrap it up there, though, guys. Thank you all so much for all the super chats. Everybody here, you're way too kind. We really, really appreciate the extra support. And also, if you want to support what we do here at PTA, the best way to do so is just join our Patreon group, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Again, everything's free for the show all the time. You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it on podcast. Just search Packer Fan Total Access on podcast. But for those who want to, hey, I want to contribute a little bit, and maybe they don't want to do it in the super chat form, you can jump over on patreon.com, and $3 get you access to everything. And we try to give you all kinds of extra content over there. I'm really trying to ramp that up. So hopefully everybody is receptive of that and everything that we're doing. It's been a lot of fun, man. Been a lot of fun. So let's see. Let's get one more comment. We'll wrap up. Clay, this is Packer Doug. Clay, did you do a self-scout on our 2024 or 2025 big board versus the draft? And again, versus PFF grades? That might be interesting. I've actually done it. We posted it. The draft board link chat was supposed to be just where we post the draft board link. Let's don't talk in there. I'm as guilty as anyone because I see somebody post something great and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So it's probably gotten buried, but we put the link to the 2025 draft board with the PFF grades on it. So we already did that. You guys have access to it. It's very interesting. Like I said, I was going to do a segment that, Goody's got to draft better because our first 2 picks last year, there's no nice way of saying this. As much as we like to make fun of the general manager for the Chicago Bears, Ryan Poles, and their whole staff, they kicked Goody's ass last year. Their draft class was phenomenal. It was off the charts. And they also did in free agency what we were saying we would like to do, but Goody chose not to, which is get a little bit older on the offensive line, get some veteran help out there. And they did that in free agency. It hurts me. It hurts my soul to say it. But the Bears, Ryan Poles smoked Goody's ass last year. If you see it, you got to say it. And we could do a show on it if you want, but I'll just give you kind of a quick reference what I'm talking about. We had Luther Burden in the 28 spot on our board. Matthew Golden was in the 38 spot. Okay? So if you're wondering why am I mentioning this, we drafted Matthew Golden at 23. He was 38 on our board. We reached. According to the board, again, Goody's forgotten way more about football evaluation than I'll ever know. But the reality is we had Luther Burden at 28, Matthew Golden at 38. We chose Matthew Golden over Luther Burden, and Luther Burden ended up being the better player. Now, it doesn't mean, hear me out right. It doesn't mean Matthew Golden won't be a great player. Okay, it doesn't mean that. He may have a bigger upside, and that's why the Packers went that route. Could be the case, right? Could be the case. But the RAS for Matthew Golden was through the roof, and I think Luther Burden's was in the 8s. So Matthew Golden was in the 9s, Luther Burden was in the 8s. It is what it is. But Luther Burden had a far better season than Matthew Golden. Now, immediately the conversation shifts to, well, Matt LaFleur didn't use him right. That's the biggest bunch of bull. That's the biggest bunch of BS you'll ever hear. Go watch the tape. They try to hit him on deep shots. They try to give him options underneath. Jordan Love was vocal at the end of the year saying, yeah, he's gotten way better at his route running, meaning he was running the wrong routes at the wrong levels. It doesn't mean he's going to be a bad football player, but we got to acknowledge that. You're going, well, Clayton, that's just one pick. Let's go to the second round. We had Ozzie Trapillo in the 78 spot. When we picked in the second round, Ozzie Trapillo was sitting in the 78 spot on our board. Okay. Anthony Belton was at 121. So we passed on the 78th best prospect according to our board and took the 121st best prospect. Right? We took Belton at 54. The Bears took Trapillo at 56. Trapillo ended up being the better football player. Right? It is what it is. Now, going back to the draft, you can go back and watch our live draft coverage. We are actually live in Green Bay, Wisconsin for the draft doing that show. And you can go back and watch my reaction. Jacob, looking at our board on the Anthony Belton pick, you can watch Jacob's live reaction on the draft. He hated the pick. He was like, what are we doing? Why did we, and what did I do? Like I always do, I immediately said, Jacob, Goody knows how to evaluate offensive linemen. He found Zach Tom, right? He helped find Elton Jenkins. And Elton Jenkins was great this day, right? He helped find Rasheed Walker, who was a 7th round pick, who started at left tackle for us, right? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like my board is better than Goody's board. Although, off a 1 year saturation, and things could change, just like Matthew Golden looked at Burton, 1 year saturation, Ozzie Trapillo was the better player, and our board held true. So it is what it is. Sucks, but hate to end it on a negative note, but those are the things we're talking about, right? And again, if you see it, you got to say it. It's very, very important. So that's it, guys. We're out of here. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. Greatly appreciate it. If you would do me a big favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of the future live streams. We may go live again this afternoon if news breaks. Got obviously early Valentine's Day dinner tonight, so no show tonight. I want to get back with the guys soon, not for Valentine's Day, but to do a live show in our normal whatever it is, 6 p.m. Central window or 5 p.m. Central window in the evening. We get the majority of our regulars in there. I want to get back to that soon. So we'll see if we can do that for sure. So, with all that being said, though, thank y'all so much. Again, thank you for all the super chats. Y'all are very, very kind. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Everybody in here, Pack Attack, Jason Y, H.E. Solder, Joe Trev, Thomas Ott, Joe Trev again, Jason Y again. Greatly, greatly appreciate the support. Check us out on patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Everybody stop what you're doing. Wherever you get your podcast, go search Packer Fan Total Access and give us a sub there. And make sure you go ahead and rate us on that as well. You can find it everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, every platform it should be out there. So y'all have a great day. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack Go.
Here we go.
Bye, guys.